Hey everyone, imagine waking up one day, and poof, the internet is gone. No memes, viral videos, instant messages, or online games. Sounds like a script from a dystopian movie, right? But let's embark on this imaginary journey and understand the impact that a sudden internet outage would have on our world. Ready to disconnect? Then, tune into this chat. I've listed here 6 main impacts we would have in the world if the internet were shut down. Shall we explore a world without connection? Before we start, let me just say quickly, this is a very new channel, we hardly have any subscribers and that's why we really need your like and your subscription. Only then can we reach a level that allows us to continue and improve the quality of the videos, okay? So, please, smash that like button and let's get to the video. First impact, social networks and communication. Let's start with something that's part of our routine, social networks. They've evaporated. No more checking Instagram feeds when waking up, sending memes in the WhatsApp group, or sharing your life on TikTok. It's like we've gone back in time, right? Suddenly, the instant and global communication we had at our disposal disappears. Long-distance relationships, that quick chat with someone from the other side of the world, become distant memories. The easy and fast connection that the internet provided leaves a strange void. Without the networks, we'd have to reinvent ourselves. Just think, going back to calling friends to see how they are, sending real letters, and waiting weeks for a reply, arranging face-to-face meetings to catch up. It would be a return to the roots of communication. Phone calls, once so common, would become an essential part of our daily communication again. That ring of the landline phone, which many of us hardly remember, would become a familiar soundtrack again. And letters? Oh, the letters. They have a charm that digital can't replicate. The emotion of handwriting, carefully choosing words, sealing the envelope, and sending it by mail. And the delicious anxiety of waiting for a reply. There's something magical in this, something that the speed of social networks never managed to capture. Face-to-face meetings would gain a new value. Without the possibility of sending a quick message or making a video call, we'd really have to meet, look into each other's eyes, share experiences face-to-face. Cafes, parks, and other meeting spots would always be full of people truly reconnecting. Social relationships would undergo a major transformation. Without social networks to keep us connected, we would maintain friendships and relationships with much greater effort. It would be necessary to invest time and energy to keep people close. Maybe we'd find out who our real friends are, those worth the effort. Mental health in this new world would be a crucial point. On one hand, the pressure and anxiety generated by social networks would disappear. The constant comparison with others' lives, the need for likes and online approval, all this would be a thing of the past. This could lead to a more peaceful and authentic life for many. On the other hand, social isolation could increase for some. Social networks, despite their flaws, are a window to the world, especially for those who have difficulty socializing in person. Losing them could mean an increase in feelings of loneliness and disconnection. But there's a positive side to all this, the appreciation of deep and meaningful communication. Without the constant interruption of notifications and the superficiality of networks, conversations would gain depth. The art of listening, of really paying attention to the other, would be rediscovered. Going back to letters, we would think twice before writing. Each word would have its weight, its intention. And upon receiving a letter, we would dedicate time to absorb every sentence, every feeling expressed. It would be an exercise in patience and attention that the speed of the internet made us forget. Printed photos, family albums, handwritten diaries. These physical memories would gain a new meaning. Without social networks to document every moment, we would return to valuing these tangible forms of preserving our memories. Without the internet, staying informed would be another big challenge. Printed newspapers, magazines, TV news, and radio would become our main sources of information. The speed and variety of news would be limited, but perhaps this would help us better absorb what's happening in the world, without the constant bombardment of information. Second impact, entertainment and information. First, let's talk about entertainment. Streaming is gone. No more comfort of watching series and movies on Netflix or listening to music on Spotify. And now? Well, we'd return to good old TV and radio. Yes, those printed program guides and the anticipation for your favorite show's time slot would be back. It would be a return to the times when the family gathered in the living room to watch a program together. And the radio? The radio would be our companion again, with music programs, talk shows, and news broadcasts. Remember movie rentals? They would be our new meeting point. Choosing a movie by its cover, asking for recommendations from the attendant, feeling the anticipation of watching something unknown. And music? CDs, vinyl records, and cassette tapes would have a revival. The experience of listening to an entire album, appreciating the cover art, would be rediscovered. Without online distractions, many would rediscover the pleasure of reading. Bookstores and libraries would become more frequented cultural centers. There would be more time to dive into stories, learn from non-fiction books, or simply enjoy a novel. Online games? Forget it. But board games and card games would gain new life. Gathering friends and family for a game night would become an important social event. The face-to-face interaction and competition bring in excitement that no online game can replicate. Sports would also feel the impact. Without live internet broadcasts, stadiums and gyms would have more audience, and watching games on TV would become an event again. In the printed media, newspapers and magazines would see an increase in circulation. People would return to appreciating the act of reading a well-written article on paper. Concerts, theater, cinema, live entertainment would gain a new shine. The collective experience of enjoying a live performance is something the internet never fully replicated. And interaction? It would be more direct, more human. Real conversations, debates in cafes, discussions in book clubs. Now let's talk about information. Without the internet, the way we get informed would change drastically. News would no longer be instantaneous. We'd have to wait for the morning edition of the newspaper or the evening TV news broadcast. In education, without Google or Wikipedia, students and researchers would have to rely on libraries and physical books. The learning process would be slower, but perhaps more in-depth. The speed and way news spreads would be very different. Without social networks and news sites, we would depend on journalists and traditional media to keep us informed. This could mean more careful journalism, but also a lesser diversity of viewpoints. And podcasts? Well, they could survive in the form of radio programs. The culture of podcasts, with their variety of themes and styles, could bring a new golden age to radio. Third impact, work and education. Without the internet, the first major impact would be in the workplace. Forget about home office or Zoom meetings. Everyone would return to offices, to physical spaces where presence is mandatory. The work flexibility that many of us value today would be a distant memory. Email communications would be replaced by printed memorandums, faxes, or, in faster cases, phone calls. The organization of files and documents would revert to being predominantly physical, with cabinets and files full of paper. Work logistics would become more local. Companies would depend more on local talents, as remote communication and collaboration would be severely limited. Internal business communication would be slower and less efficient, requiring frequent in-person meetings and printed reports. In marketing and advertising, goodbye to social media and digital marketing. It would be the triumphant return of ads in newspapers, magazines, television, and radio. Advertising campaigns would require more creativity to reach the public without the precise targeting that the internet provides. Now let's talk about education. Without the internet, say goodbye to online classes, easy Google searches, and digital educational resources. Students would have to rely again on textbooks, libraries, and face-to-face classes. Academic research would be deeply affected. Without access to online articles and publications, students and researchers would have to spend hours in libraries, physically searching for the necessary information. The dissemination of knowledge would be slower and more localized. In elementary and secondary education, teachers would have to rely on textbooks and physical resources to teach. Computer classes, which today teach about web navigation and software use, would have to focus on more basic computing skills. In higher education, the lack of internet would mean a radical change. Lectures would become the norm, and students' ability to conduct independent research would be more challenging and limited. Without webinars, online courses, and global access to experts, higher education would be more isolated and less diverse. For those seeking continuing education or vocational courses, the lack of online options would limit access to education and professional development, especially for those working full-time or living far from training centers. In the corporate world, career development and the professional networking would be more challenging. Without LinkedIn or similar platforms, building a professional network would require more in-person meetings and participation in events and conferences. Business meetings and decision-making would be more prolonged processes. Without the possibility of quick video conferences or email exchanges, coordinating schedules and communication between departments and companies would be constant challenges. Marketing materials, reports, and corporate correspondence would revert to being predominantly printed. This would imply higher costs for printing and distribution, as well as a significant environmental impact from the intensive use of paper. Fourth impact, economy and business. Without emails, instant messaging, or social networks, business communication would revert to relying on phone calls, letters, and faxes. Forget quick responses. Now, communications would be slower and perhaps more thoughtful. Networking and building business relationships would also be affected. Without LinkedIn or online events, we would return to depending on conferences, business meetings, and business cards to expand our contact network. Goodbye, digital marketing. Without the internet, advertising would return to being dominated by ads in newspapers, magazines, TV, radio, and billboards. The precise targeting of the target audience, which we do today online, would be much more challenging. Marketing strategies would have to be more creative to capture the public's attention. We would witness a renaissance of print and audio-visual advertising, with a greater focus on creativity and visual and emotional appeal. Without e-commerce, physical stores would regain their central role in commerce. This would mean an increase in the importance of customer service and the in-store shopping experience. Storefronts, product layout, and the store atmosphere would become crucial elements. Catalog sales, almost extinct today, could resurge as a popular alternative for distance shopping. Telephone shopping would also become common again, and long-term customer relationships would be more valued. Online banking services would disappear. We would return to depending on visits to bank branches for most transactions. ATMs would continue to be useful, but many services, especially those related to investments and international transfers, would become more complicated and time-consuming. Paying bills would require more time and physical effort, with queues at banks or sending checks by mail. Financial transactions would be slower, affecting the speed of business in general. Global supply chains, which heavily depend on the internet for coordination and monitoring, would be strongly impacted. Logistics would become more challenging, with companies depending on phone or fax communications to track and manage shipments. This could lead to an increase in localism, with companies preferring geographically closer suppliers and partners to minimize the complexity and risks of the supply chain. The stock market and the world of investments would be drastically affected. Without the ability to conduct transactions online, everything would become slower. Real-time stock price updates, something we take for granted today, would be a challenge. Investors would depend on printed bulletins or phone updates to make investment decisions. This could result in a less volatile market, but also less accessible for the average investor. Research and development in all sectors would be impacted by the difficulty of quick access to current information and studies. International collaboration on research projects would be more complicated, potentially slowing scientific and technological progress. Companies would have to invest more in their own libraries and research departments, and the exchange of information would be more limited and regionalized. The landscape for startups and entrepreneurs would change radically. Without the ability to launch and promote businesses online, entrepreneurs would have to rely more on traditional networking and funding methods. Access to venture capital could become more challenging, as the dissemination of information about new companies and technologies would be slower and less efficient. The global economy would be affected by the difficulty of communication and international coordination. International trade relations would become more complicated, possibly leading to a greater emphasis on local trade and production. Large multinational corporations would face significant challenges in managing their global operations, potentially restructuring the global economy in unpredictable ways. Fifth impact: technology and innovation. The Internet is a crucial tool for research and development in all areas of science and technology. Without instant access to a vast repository of information, scientific papers, and research data, the pace of innovation would be severely impacted. Without online communication, international collaboration, essential for large research projects, would be hindered. This could significantly slow down scientific progress, from medicine to quantum physics. The ICT, information and communication technologies, sector would be one of the most affected. Without the Internet, the demand for traditional hardware and software, such as personal computers and operating systems, would continue, but the emphasis would be drastically shifted. Cloud computing, which has become fundamental to many services and businesses, would cease to exist. This would require a return to local storage systems and more traditional, less efficient IT solutions. Currently, many software and applications depend on Internet connectivity for operation and updates. Without the Internet, we would see a return to purely desktop-based software, with updates being distributed physically, perhaps on disks or USB drives. The gaming industry, particularly online and mobile games, would face a huge setback. The user experience would be drastically altered, turning towards offline games and traditional consoles. Artificial intelligence, AI, and big data heavily rely on the collection and analysis of large amounts of online data. Without the Internet, the development and advancement of AI would be greatly limited. The AI applications we see today, from virtual assistants to predictive analytics in various sectors, would suffer a major blow. Innovation in this field would be drastically slowed down. Technology education, which has heavily relied on online resources such as courses, tutorials, and learning platforms, would have to find new ways to operate. Access to learning materials would be more difficult, making technological education less accessible. This could widen the already existing technology skills gap, negatively affecting the future workforce and continuous innovation in the technology field. The vibrant ecosystem of tech startups, which thrives due to global connectivity and easy access to online resources, would be seriously harmed. The ability to launch and scale new technologies quickly would be limited. Startups that depend on the Internet for their business model would have to completely reinvent themselves or face extinction. Funding and support for new technologies would also be more challenging, affecting the global innovation ecosystem. Many modern solutions for environmental and sustainability issues depend on technology and online data analysis. Without the Internet, data collection and analysis for monitoring climate change, pollution, and other environmental issues would be impaired. This could slow down the development and implementation of sustainable technologies, from renewable energies to energy efficiency solutions and smart cities. The healthcare sector, which has seen significant advances thanks to technology and the Internet, such as telemedicine and health data management, would face considerable challenges. Coordination and communication among healthcare professionals would be slower and less efficient. The development of new medical technologies, which often relies on global data and collaboration, would be slowed down. This would affect everything from pharmaceutical research to the development of new medical devices. Sixth impact: global and environmental impact. The Internet has revolutionized how nations interact. Diplomats, world leaders, and international organizations depend on it for fast and effective communication. Without the Internet, we would revert to slower and perhaps less efficient methods of international communication. This could lead to misunderstandings and delays in responses to global crises. Coordination on issues such as climate change, natural disasters, and international conflicts would be more challenging. Globalization, largely driven by the Internet, has transformed international relations. Without it, we might see a possible regression in globalization, impacting trade, culture, and political relationships. Nations could become more isolationist, with fewer cultural and economic exchanges. This could have profound repercussions on cultural understanding and tolerance between countries. The Internet plays a crucial role in monitoring and responding to climate change. Global networks of sensors and satellites collect essential data that is shared online. Without the Internet, this coordination and data sharing would be severely impaired. Progress on international projects to combat climate change, such as the Paris Agreement, could be slowed down. The inability to quickly share information about extreme weather phenomena could have disastrous consequences. International trade today heavily depends on the internet for everything from logistics to market communications. Without the internet, global trade could face significant challenges, with delays and inefficiencies. This could lead to a slowdown in the global economy and an increase in protectionism. Supply chains would be affected, potentially leading to product shortages and a rise in prices. Tourism is another area deeply impacted by the internet. The ease of planning and booking trips online would disappear, possibly resulting in a reduction in international tourism. This would have a significant economic impact on countries that depend on tourism. Additionally, the understanding and appreciation of different cultures, often facilitated by tourism, could diminish. Interestingly, the internet has a substantial environmental impact. Global data centers consume vast amounts of energy, often from non-renewable sources. Without the internet, there would be a significant reduction in energy consumption related to these centers. However, this environmental benefit might be offset by less efficient methods of communication and business operation. For example, an increase in paper use and greenhouse gas emissions due to more traditional communication methods. The internet has been a crucial tool for promoting sustainable development and environmental innovation. Without it, sharing knowledge and sustainable technologies would be more challenging. International collaborative projects in renewable energy, biodiversity conservation, and resource management would be affected. This could delay progress towards the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Finally, the absence of the internet would affect the capacity for international cooperation in the future. Projects that rely on global coordination, such as space exploration and international scientific research, would face significant challenges. The ability to respond quickly to global crises, whether health, environmental, or political, would be diminished. This could lead to a more fragmented and less cooperative world. Conclusion. To conclude, this imaginative journey through the absence of the internet shows us how deeply it is rooted in our lives. From personal to professional, from entertainment to education, the internet is more than a tool, it's an extension of our lives. Imagining a world without it is not just thinking about a technological setback, but also about how we would adapt socially, professionally, and culturally to this new reality. So, what do you think would be the hardest to deal with without the internet? Share in the comments and let's continue this conversation. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. See you next time.